Howdy readers and howdy film buffs. My name is Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and this is the last cinema installment of my project on mortality that I've been doing throughout the whole year. It's called You Carry a Coffin Today. And throughout the year I've been looking at books, fiction and nonfiction, and poetry actually, as well as films that deal with the subject of mortality, of death. And this is the last movie installment in that project. And in this video, we are going to be talking about The Widow of Saint-Pierre. This was directed by Patrice Leconte. It stars Daniel Auteuil, Juliette Binoche, and Emir Kusturica, who is himself a filmmaker. He's better known, actually, as a director than as an actor. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has followed along with this project or who has participated in this project in whole or in part throughout the year. If you hadn't, this would have been a real slog, and I probably would have abandoned it midway through the year. But the fact that so many of you seem to really appreciate the project itself made it very rewarding for me. Even though, in the last couple of months, I'll admit, it has been kind of a trial to finish. Spending a year thinking about death, reading about death, watching films about death, trying to kind of cohere one's ideas about those works of art and put them into videos for you has been a challenge, but it has ultimately been well worth it. And again, thanks in large part to all of you, and you know who you are. So The Widow of Saint-Pierre. This movie, it came out like in 2000, 2001. I saw it when it first came out, not in the theater, but as soon as it was released on, it might have actually been VHS, come to think of it. But this movie feels very much like the last in a kind of window of French cinema that I really, really love. So French cinema is best known for its French New Wave, right? So pictures that were made in the 1960s and 1970s by Francois Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard, Agnès Varda, Jacques Demy. And I love a lot of those movies, right? Jacques Demy's musicals are just absolutely stunning. We watched an Agnès Varda film in this project earlier this year, Vagabond. But in the early to mid 1980s, French filmmakers, and I don't know what precipitated this, I don't know what was behind it, I suppose, but French filmmakers became kind of obsessed with historical realism, right? So dramas that, weren't flashy or experimental, they were just really rooted in place and in story. And these were movies like Jean de Florette and its sequel, Manon of the Spring, movies like Germinal and Tous les Matins du Monde, Cyrano de Bergerac, which I did see in the theater. And The Widow of Saint-Pierre seems to have kind of fallen right at the end of that. And then Amélie came out, and French cinema moved in an entirely different direction. But this film is set in a French territory off the coast of Newfoundland in the 19th century. The French Revolution has taken place. And it's a film that again, it's just there's nothing sort of stylistically experimental about it or anything like that. It is just very much about character, place, people, drama, and it's lovely. And this was my first time watching it since I was in college, and I think I probably liked it even more now. And I loved it then. So The Widow of Saint-Pierre is about these two men. Okay, it begins with these two sailors who go on a drunken binge upon returning to shore, and they have this argument with each other as to this other man in the town, whether or not he's fat or big, or fat or big, and they, in their drunken stupor, go to this man's house and sort of tempt him outside, and they murder him, and they dismember him, and then they find themselves on trial for the crime. and one of the men is essentially given a life sentence. And the other man, the one who did the actual killing, the actual stabbing, is sentenced to death. And then an accident happens once they're being transported from the court. The villagers begin stoning their carriage, the carriage in which they're being transported. And one of the villagers hits the horse pulling the carriage, pulling the cart, I should say, with a stone, and the horse spooks and just, essentially goes rampaging, and the cart overturns, and the man who was to be given a life sentence is killed in the accident. And so the rest of the film is essentially the man who did the murder waiting for a guillotine to be delivered from France. It actually ends up coming from Martinique, which I think was another French territory at the time. And so he's essentially waiting for the means by which he's going to be put to death. So, Juliette Binoche plays the wife of the man who's essentially in charge of the jail, the military presence in the territory. And she comes up with the idea of him being allowed out of his cell to assist her in planting flowers, assist her in this greenhouse that she wants to put together. And then he ends up being enlisted to help people repair their homes and whatnot. And for me, the film is very much about grace. Now, people who are not religious, people who are not Christian, when one says, oh, the film is about grace, many of those people have no idea what I'm talking about. Before I became a Christian, I had no idea at all what people were talking about when they talked about grace. And essentially, in a nutshell, grace is love and acceptance and forgiveness for someone without that person having done anything to warrant it. Okay? So when Juliette Binoche takes it into her head to persuade her husband to allow this prisoner out, all she knows about him is that he has killed and dismembered another person in her village. And so he has done nothing, he has done zilch to warrant her generosity and her kindness. But she gives it to him anyway, and that's grace. So as the prisoner is allowed out and is allowed to assist people in the town with, again, repairing their homes or transporting a building, like they're literally trying to move, I think it's the town tavern or restaurant, they're trying to move it in a scene that is very much reminiscent of Fitzcarraldo by Werner Herzog, and also of Oscar and Lucinda, directed by Gillian Armstrong, where we see the structure being transported, and at first it seems like magic. But yeah, it's not. I mean, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's a lot of hard work, and the prisoner is helping with that as well. The townspeople come to love him. They come to forgive him. They come to see something remarkable in him because he's being reformed. I mean, that's part of what her kindness, Juliette Binoche's character's kindness, has done. It is reforming him. She's teaching him how to read. She's giving him space to grow in a way that he never had before, and to grow in a way that allows him to really condemn his own guilt, and to recognize the gravitas, I suppose, of what he has done. And as remarkable, as wonderful as it is to see the townspeople coming around, to see their change of heart, it is made possible by the grace from Juliette Binoche's character. That's really the heart of the movie. It's not the townspeople coming around to it, right? Again, it's easy to feel warmly towards someone who has done something good for you. It's very, very difficult to feel warmly towards someone who has done not only nothing to inspire that warmth, but who has done everything to deter someone from feeling that warmth toward them. And that's what she does. The film also does a very, very good job at putting many faces on human cowardice. It's essentially all of these people in the film who are unwilling to serve as executioner, but who insist on his execution. They don't want to do the deed themselves, but they want to see it done. And there's just something really despicable about that. And we see it today as well. So I just wanted to say a couple of things about capital punishment. Going to slightly get on a soapbox here. I'm opposed to it, but I wasn't always. When I was a child, when I was a teenager, when I was a young man, I supported capital punishment. And then there was a passage, and I may have talked about this in a past video, I can't remember, but there was a passage in East of Eden by John Steinbeck that started to make me see things differently. And then I saw Dead Man Walking, directed by Tim Robbins. It just revolutionized, it upended my ideas about capital punishment. One of the things that this film does, two of the things that this film does, is it reminds us of why executing people is a fucking bad idea. So one, it discourages us from seeing the condemned as a human being. It encourages us to see them as a monster, which is bad. That's a problem. The other thing it does is that it deprives the community of the chance to have its own ways of seeing being softened, right? Being complicated. And that is such a shame. If we should want anything in this world, we should want our hearts to be less hard than they are. And executing people does the opposite. It makes our hearts even harder than they were. Whatever our reasons for wanting to support the executing of someone, in the end, we should want our hearts to be softened. We should want the person to be reformed. We should want to forgive. We should want the person to forgive himself or herself. But we're really bad at that for some reason. I'm really not sure why. There is a quote that I wanted to share right here about that very thing from Anthony Marra's book, The Czar of Love and Techno. But I don't have it in front of me, so I will try to insert that quote right here. The portrait artist must acknowledge human complexity with each brushstroke. The eyes, nose, and mouth that compose a sitter's face, just like the suffering and joy that compose his soul, are similar to those of 10 million others, yet still singular to him. This acknowledgement is where art begins. It may also be where mercy begins. If criminals drew the faces of their victims before perpetrating their crimes, and judges drew the faces of the guilty before sentencing them, then there would be no faces for executioners to draw. Now, the other thing I wanted to do in this video was to discuss the Deathbed Tag that Lukasha Totally Pretentious and I have co-created in the last week. Before I say anything about the tag itself, I wanted to thank all of you who have really recognized what we were trying to do, what we are trying to do with this tag, and who have appreciated what we've been trying to do, which are two things, namely, with the Deathbed Tag, we have been trying to create a place on BookTube to speak about end of life in community with other people we love, we respect, we have come to cherish. So that's one of the things that we have been trying to do. The second thing is that we wanted to celebrate the role of art in who we are and in how we are comforted, especially at those moments when we feel most alone or most bereft. That's what we wanted to do with the tag. Most of you have gotten that. Most of you have understood that. Thank you for getting it. Okay, thank you for getting it. Some of you haven't. A few of you haven't. And so I just wanted to say a few things about that. I'm not going to name names or single out any channels or anything like this. But I did want to say that BookTube, particularly this corner of BookTube, right? This kind of literary BookTube, or BookTube 2.0, as Steve Donahue is fond of calling it. This is not the place for trolling, for troll behavior, okay? If there is a video with a title that leads you to believe you're going to be offended or upset or irritated or infuriated by that video, don't fucking watch it, okay? Do yourself and everyone else that favor. Don't watch it. If you're expecting it to piss you off or to offend you or to upset you or to just get so deeply under your skin that you just can't let it go, don't watch it. And if you do watch it, have the tact and the decency not to attack its creator. There are plenty of places on the internet, including most of the rest of YouTube, where that's par for the course. That's fine, right? If you want to go someplace, Facebook, wherever, and attack the person behind a post or behind a video, there are lots of places to do that. BookTube, it's not one of those places, okay? So when you go onto someone's video, right, in the comments section below someone's video, whether it's the Deathbed Tag that Lukash and I have created or any other video, and you describe the idea behind the content as, quote, highly blind, or, quote, highly insensitive, or, quote, in poor taste, or, quote, insensitive, or, quote, naive and inconsiderate at best. Here's what you're doing. You are not judging the content. You are judging the creator. You are implying that the creator has no taste, no sensitivity, no vision. And we don't do that here. We don't do that here, okay? So it's a judgment on the person when you do that, not on the video. And it's also a judgment on all of those who have appreciated the video, the tag in this case, who have looked at it as thought-provoking. It's a judgment on those people as well. If you're upset about how the ideas about end of life that Lukash and I are expressing don't line up with your ideas, whatever you're going through, you don't have the right to come into our comments fields and attack us and to imply that we don't know what we're talking about. Because for starters, you have no idea what we've been through or what people that we have loved have been through. You don't know shit about our pasts, okay? You don't know anything about it. And so to come into our territory and to come into our space, where we have tried really hard to produce something that was thoughtful and that was sensitive, just because it doesn't line up with your own experience of it, doesn't mean that our experience of these things, our thoughts about these things, aren't valid, that they might not be useful or therapeutic to other people. So keep those comments to yourself, please. Please, okay? If you come onto my videos and do things like that, then I'm just going to block you. Like, I don't give a shit. Yeah, you can say whatever you want about the content itself, but when you imply things about me personally, yeah, I'm just going to have no part of that at all. So let's keep BookTube a place where we are respectful of each other, and where we're not implying in the comments fields on videos that other creators are insensitive or blind or short-sighted. I suppose we could even go further than that, ignorant or callous, because you know what? We're not. None of us here are those things. So far as I can tell, none of us here are those things. So please keep comments like that to yourself. If you see a video coming up in your feed that you suspect is just gonna rub you in as wrong a way as possible, again, don't watch it, right? Do yourself and everyone else that favor, and just please don't watch it. And those are my thoughts for this evening. So we have one more book left in the Mortality Project. You Carry a Coffin today. We are reading Kent Haruf's novel Benediction for the end of the month. So if you're wanting to read that with me, I'll be putting my video on it. Kelly and I, actually, my wife and I both, will be doing that video together. We'll be putting that video up at the end of the month. If you're at all interested in reading that book along with us, please do. And yeah, we'll have a space for you to discuss it. Just so long as you're not attacking me or my wife in your comments at the end of the month. So I will talk to you guys again very soon. Adios.